Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that, but don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week, new episode of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 279. We're covering movies that are coming out the week of January 31st, 2025. I am joined by Eric Holmes. We just got done with Patreon covering the movies The Goonies and Commando. Eric Holmes, what will our non-Patreon members miss from our wonderful episode? Little teaser, little plug.
I miss us talking about Goonies and Commando. Went off on a couple of other things, usually involving Brandon Lee or Gremlins. But it was...
And One Man Army? There's some One Man Army.
Oh, One Man Force. The John Matuzak vehicle, One Man Force.
Yes.
Go watch that. If you watch the movies that I give 5 stars to and you're perplexed by that, One Man Force might not be the movie for you. But... If you watch the straight-to-video action movies that me and Greg eat up like spaghetti,
yes,
One Man Force is your movie. Go seek that one out.
Do we eat them up like spaghetti or spaghetti and meatballs, Eric Holmes?
Eat it up like Magic Mind. It'll help you. Now, I will say...
You are a great pitch man.
You know, these Goonies and Commando came out in 85.
Yes.
So I don't quite remember everything because that was 30 years ago. Magic Mind can't help with that, but it made
that
it
was
better.
40 years ago, Eric Holmes.
40 years ago?
Yes, Asian math. I'm not
85, 95, 15. Oh yeah, 40 years ago.
No problem.
Dude,
no problem.
It's not actual magic, but it does help. It does help.
Yeah. So postmortem, you've been taking them Magic Mind the gummies for about a week and a half. Okay, it helps. Because you
there was
really
a lot
hard
in here. It's getting kind of low, but we still got quite a few left.
Okay.
Been taking 3 a day, and they taste wonderful.
Oh, very, very good. Tastes wonderful. Keeps your mind alert for some movie podcasting, right? A little bit helps with the movie podcasting.
And keep in mind, my mind is utter garbage anyway.
Same here. Yes.
So this brings me to like a normal human's regular level. If you're already at a regular level, who knows where it's gonna go.
Well, I'm also so Magic Mind will not play tricks with you. It should enhance your life. I'm trying to play tricks with Eric right now because I have a new camera, the DJ Osmo 3, which and wasn't so good with our Patreon. I'll be honest with you. It sort of pooped out during our Patreon thing, but hopefully it will be okay for this CinemAddicts episode. So for Patreon members, I apologize for the video. It still came out, but it's a little bit a mishmash or mishmash. Ooh. But for this, I'm actually. Are you still trying to get used to the whole gimbal?
I was just gonna say, move around, show off the technology. Wait, you moved back and did that Hitchcock zoom a little bit.
Whoa, it's weird. It is. So hopefully we'll have this gimbal thing working throughout the rest of the CinemAddicts episode.
Mine's not working.
Yours works in spirit. So the movies covered this week are Drained, Green and Gold, Like Father, Like Son, and Bronx Tale one-man show.
Yes. Here's
the good news for in-depth movie coverage of Drained and Like Father, Like Son. You're going to listen to Bruce Purkey over at the Cinematic. He's still up in the attic. Have you been treating him well? I know you have 2 jobs. You're full-time. Have you been abusing Bruce Purkey in the attic at all, or have you been treating him like a normal human being? You're not treating him like Sloth from the Goonies, are you?
No. I mean, he can just, at this point, everything's just unlocked. Like, he keeps getting out, so I'm like, well, why fight it? So,
fight it?
Yeah.
Bruce Purkey comes and goes.
Like, he didn't even need the pee pads. He can just come down and use the bathroom like a normal human.
Okay.
And,
very, very
honestly, I think he's been doing that the whole time anyway, because I thought I had him tied up, chained, and, locked in. Turns out he's been putting on airs the whole time. So,
well, at least you're giving him freedom. You did not give him any of your gummy bears, right? Your gummies, your Magic Mind gummies.
Some of them have been disappearing. Maybe he has been taking a few of them. Who knows?
So look, for the cinematic, which you're going to listen to in about 25, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I don't know how long this episode will go, but for Drained, I'm going to talk about Drained very quickly. I'm going to talk about Like Father, Like Son very quickly, but for the in-depth stuff, go to Bruce Purkey. He has those two movies covered for us this week. Eric and I have two movies covered, Green and Gold and Like Father, Like Son. I'm going to throw it to you, Eric Holmes. Which movies do you want to cover first?
I want to hear about Like Father, Like Son. I am kind of excited to hear a little bit about Green and Gold, but
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
So this will be a
let's hear about Like Father, Like Son.
This will be a mini review, very quick review. I think I'm just moving things around right now, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the movies that Bruce covers. I want to. I didn't tell you this, Eric Holmes. The movies you review on a given week, I will make sure I watch them too, and we will review them in depth. This one will be a quick, sort of like a little mini recommend, like Father, Like Son. Okay, it stars Ariel Winter, Ariel Winter, Vivica A. Fox, Mayim Bialik, and Dermot Mulroney, and also Dylan Flashner. It's not Like Father, Like Son. I don't know if you remember this. It was a Dudley Moore movie, if I recall, from years ago.
Arthur?
Not Arthur, but I think there was a Dudley Moore movie called Like Father, Like Son. That's not this movie. It's a pretty dark movie. It starts off with Eli. He is a youth. He's a young man, and you see him. His father's a janitor cleaning up a park bathroom or whatnot. His father's played by Dermot Mulroney. And what happens is there's a kid in the park who's being bullied by some jerk. And Dermot Mulroney's character, he looks at that jerk who's beating up this kid who's this weaker dude, this weaker kid, and Mulroney's character does not like it. And what happens is Mulroney approaches that man, that bully, and tells him, "Hey, don't do it." And the bully continues, and the father ultimately kills that person in cold blood. So you see Dermot Mulroney being very violent. Then what happens is Eli, his son, Dermot Mulroney's son, Eli is understandably traumatized because his father is now in jail, possibly facing the death sentence for murder. And Eli is wondering, did he inherit his father's killer instinct? Not like killer instinct like you need to get a job, killer instinct like you need to make money to feed your family. No, literal killer instinct. Eli is in fear that he might have the killing gene, if that is such a thing. Is this cycle of violence, this necessity to kill, is it like father, like son? Did he inherit it from his dad? So then Ariel Winter, she plays a love interest of Eli's, and you see their relationship go through its certain drama in Like Father, Like Son. But ultimately the premise is whether or not Eli, he starts picking up violent tendencies, and I don't want to give too much away. He's wondering if he really is evil or not, like his father. So I thought that would have been a great film for you, because it's described as an emotional thriller, but it's a very interesting story. It's also not going to be for everyone. I have a feeling Bruce Purkey might not like Father, Like Son. It's in theaters, digital, and on demand January 31st. It's directed and written by Barry J. Barry J was a successful fitness mogul. He's known for Barry's Boot Camp, which eventually turned itself into the franchise Barry's. But Barry, instead of continuing a life in family fitness or in fitness and health, he decided to become a filmmaker. I mean, he was at the top of the line, just mogul in the fitness arena. And he decided in his maybe late 40s, early 50s, to change course and become a filmmaker. It's a very interesting film. Like Father, Like Son, great performances, solid performances by Dylan Flashner as Eli. And I really liked where this movie went. It went to some really dark, violent places. And the ending is in my opinion, pretty well done and unrelenting. I enjoyed it. I'm giving Like Father, Like Son, in theaters, digital, and on demand, January 31st, 3.5 stars. So that's a very quick review for Like Father, Like Son. Bruce will have the in-depth situation on that. And you know what? While we're on just very quick mini reviews, I'm also going to talk about this movie called Drained. And it's a movie that's currently on demand. It hit on demand January 28th. And it centers on Thomas. He is an artist. Okay, very talented artist. Really, at the beginning, you see him drawing this really beautiful woman up, and he lives in his mom's attic. Okay, and has all these interesting hand-drawn paintings or sketches, and it's this beautiful woman that he's been fixating over. And he fixates over her so much that there's some graphic stuff regarding his paintings that Thomas undergoes in the beginning of the movie. You know, he's sort of a mama's boy. He doesn't have a job. One night on the town, he goes to his friend's neighborhood bar, and he meets Rhea, played by Madalena Bellerio. I'm mispronouncing her name. Eric, you saw her as the main female lead in that Scott Adkins film Take Cover. She was very good in Take Cover. And here, Rhea, I think I'm just going to go with Rhea. She plays a vampire that he meets in the bar. And Thomas is Yep, I'm sorry?
I heard vampire. I'm in.
Yeah, you would have been interested in this. I think that's a movie that you should actually watch. It's a really good movie. Thomas, falls immediately in love with her, and she has you're wondering, will she fall in love with Thomas? Because he is in love with her, and he's giving her basically his body. He is a blood meat sack for her to suck blood from, and she is his main supply, his food. He ends up being her main food source. So does she see Thomas as more than a food source, or does she see him as just a food source? While he's falling in love with her, he becomes more obsessed with her, and a lot of bad things happen. When you become obsessed with someone, maybe certain things will fall by the wayside. For example, his relationship with his mother, his relationship with his mother's new boyfriend, it's very strained. So there's a lot of things that happen in Thomas's life that is very not good, because his relationship with his mother isn't so good, and he's causing tension with her relationship with her new boyfriend. All the while, Rhea, he's trying to figure out what's going on with her, and when he becomes more obsessive and possessive, maybe that does not bode well for his own fate. And yeah, it's currently on demand. It's an indie film, so you're not going to get some amazing special effects or great production design or high-end visuals on Drained, but it's good enough as an indie film. What really hooked me on to Drained were the performances by Madalena and Rudith Aldington. I cannot pronounce his name, but the leads are very good in this movie. Really good acting, and I liked the way this movie told its story, because Thomas, as this guy who's very irresponsible and he's a mama's boy, you see how things really play off in a very negative fashion for him, because he's a guy who really does not know how to take action in his life. I really liked the way his character was etched. And Rhea is a very mysterious woman, and I wish there was a little bit more stuff on her in the movie, just a little bit more of a backstory, because there is a person, she calls her, quote, old man. And I wanted a little bit more backstory with her connection with this person she's with who is dying. I would have liked a little bit more of that, but Madalena is very excellent in the movie as well. Looking forward to seeing her in more stuff. This is another movie that pretty much surprised me. I thought there was going to be a cheesy B movie with a ton of sex and exploitation, and I didn't get that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. But I was actually treated to a movie that's actually a real good drama about lust and obsession and taking action in your life. And the ending is pretty well done. I'm actually giving Drained 4 stars. 4 stars for Drained for me. Really enjoyed it. Again, catch it on demand. Tell me what you think of this movie. I can't pronounce his name, but Rudith Aldington, he's such a good actor. He's so really well done. He does a really great performance in Drained. And again, I really love Madalena from Take Cover. She was the best part of that movie. No disrespect to Eric Holmes and his love for Scott Adkins, but I thought her humanistic performance in Take Cover really put that movie over the edge for me, and she's good in this movie as well. So check out Drained. Tell me what you think. Now let's get to the movies that Eric and I reviewed. Eric, which one do you want? Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, spoiler alert, I like both of them, but I think I liked one a little bit more.
Okay.
So let's not bury the lead. We kind of already did. Bronx Tale, one-man show.
Okay, go for it.
Did you get to watch this one at all?
Yes, I did. Tell me what's about.
Okay, Chaz Palminteri. So I think I've seen one-man show previously, and I think that was John Leguizamo, and that was like a long time ago. So I kind of I remember it just being him standing up there telling stories. And that's kind of what this is because Bronx Tale, the movie, is based on Chaz Palminteri's experiences growing up, as far as I can tell. It's been a while since I've seen Bronx Tale, But I wasn't quite sure what to expect with Bronx Tale, the original one-man show. I think that's how it started off. He did this as a one-man show. Someone liked it. They wanted to buy it from him, and he wanted to write the screenplay for it. And he also wanted to play Sonny, I believe.
Yes.
And so it was kind of like a Rocky situation where Stallone wrote Rocky. And it's like, hey, you can buy it, but I need to play Rocky, you know? It was kind of like that. This was freaking, I love this because it's just Chaz Palminteri on stage. He's telling a story, but he's playing the parts of all the different characters, and they all got
the wise guys in the neighborhood, the blue collar workers, the people he grew up with in the Bronx in the 1960s. Yeah.
And he's even playing, the kid, like as a kid, and then later on growing up, and
he's playing the dad. He's a one-man show. He's playing everybody. Sonny does a great job as Sonny too.
This is weird because it's just him in a black background
and a chair.
At the end, yeah. At the end, they show him doing the one way back in the day, and he's got like all these props and everything with him, but not on this one. It's just him in a chair in a black background. And when you watch a movie with subtitles, like you don't understand the language, so you watch it with subtitles. But for some reason, when you reflect on the movie, I don't know if you do this, but I do this. I remember them saying the lines in English, even though they absolutely were not.
Fair, yeah.
I remember scenes that were not in this movie because Chaz Palminteri did such a great job acting out the scenes and kind of painting the scenes and telling the story. Like I go back and remember it as these scenes that happen. The character does, there's a bit with the car towards the end that I probably shouldn't get into. There's opening up. There's the I forget the guy's name, the main mob boss guy.
Sonny. Yeah.
Sonny. Okay. Yeah. Sonny kills the guy, and then the dad, brings his kid in that saw everything. It's like I see that whole thing. I remember that as a whole scene. I don't remember that as Chaz Palminteri being the one guy sitting there. Does any of this kind of make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And I was locked in the whole time. I wasn't sure what to expect. And then as soon as he started and then just kind of kept going, it was like
Eric, can I
really dramatic. It was funny as hell in a bunch of spots because he kept having all these silly callbacks and stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
Devil's advocate, okay? It's currently on demand. Someone's going to ask you, Eric, it's a guy talking to an audience. It's only him in a chair and maybe a suit. Why am I going to spend my money or whatever to watch 90 plus minutes of a guy just talking?
Same reason you're going to join our Patreon. Why are you going to pay Patreon? It's just two guys talking every week or every month.
That's true.
But this is just...
I think my answer would be he's just a great storyteller and he's a great actor. So he's acting out of the role.
Fantastic storyteller.
He's magnetic. He's a magnetic presence. He's always been.
And from the jump, like you're right in there. And when he gets into the character, like some characters are like, they start off fun. And so he's just doing like kind of these, archetype or cliche characters. That's how it start off. But then once you get more into the character now, like some of the characters are comic relief. Some of the characters like got more depth to them. And then as it goes on, I just kept leaning closer and closer to the screen, like every second. And it's amazing. Like, because the movie I saw is on paper pretty boring. The movie that Chaz Palminteri put in my head after having watched that is a completely different thing than was actually on screen. It's an amazing magic trick he did with this.
I will say this. If you're a fan of A Bronx Tale, this is obviously in your wheelhouse, right? But people who love A Bronx Tale may say, I don't want to watch A Bronx Tale one-man show. I've already seen the movie. My answer to that is it only enhances the movie on a deeper level. But on top, even more important, I think this one-man show stands alone whether or not you've seen the movie or not. It is a singular piece that is worth watching just because of what it is, right? And the fact that a film exists on top of that, it's just a great sandwich. But both of them are good sandwiches on their own, if that makes any sense, Eric.
Yeah. And I mean, This kind of goes back to what I was saying, but I was almost saying like, oh, who played that one? Chaz Palminteri did. There were no characters. It was just Chaz Palminteri. But that's how it just burrows its way into your mind, just kind of lives there because he does such a great job with all the characters that it feels like you have different actors playing all these different characters off of. And I think the editing helps with that too, because like, he'll turn this way, be this character and then turn that way, kind of miming someone talking. So then the way they edit it kind of brings a film language aspect to it that
Right.
might not be there if you were there live watching it. Although I'm sure watching it live is just as mesmerizing.
And you have, look, it's not a big thing, but you have sound effects throughout the production. If I'm trying to remember what specific sound, maybe if there's a
It's like
gunshot or
yeah.
a fire, if there's a fire engine or something like that. So
There
you'll
was
hear it.
there was that one
Crack of the
part
bat.
where
Yeah.
there was a fire and it looked like there was like smoke everywhere,
Mhm.
and then it cut, and then there wasn't smoke anymore. So
Right.
I'm kind of curious how they did that because
That was interesting.
smoke doesn't come in that quick and then disappear that quick.
Yeah.
So they had to have done something there. But
Well, yeah, I love a Bronx Tale one man show. It's just he's a Palmentary. I interviewed Palmentary back in the early '90s when a Bronx Tale was out. I don't really remember what specific press junket I interviewed Palmentary for, but when he talked about one of the things he always mentioned, he still mentions to this day about nothing's worse than wasted talent. And he said that during the press
yeah,
junket years ago, and it's a story he stuck with since 1989 when I think that one man show debuted. And it's not a tired message. You can tell he's still engaged with his story and he's not going through the motions. I was really highly impressed with a Bronx Tale one man show. I'm giving it 4.5 stars. Really loved it. What
oh,
about you,
four and a
Eric?
half. That seems low. I gave it
Oh,
5. I could watch this. I could watch this every day. And it was just I was just that much into it, and
what you like the message as well? I mean, you like the story. You like the actual life of the
the
Bronx.
message is the message is irrelevant in this matter. It was just what the story he was telling. I was just locked in the whole time,
Very good.
and when it was over, I was sad because I wanted it to keep going.
Yeah.
Like if Chaz Palminteri has another one man show in him, I'm there for it. I absolutely love this.
I'm glad you loved it. I loved it as well. Not as much as Eric, but both high, really good reviews. I wish, look, Bruce is one of the things I think Bruce would have liked it too. I don't know if Bruce is a fan of a Bronx Tale. Are you a fan of a Bronx Tale as well? Did you like it,
See,
that
that's
movie?
just it. I saw it a while ago and I don't remember it. Like
Oh my
none of this
God.
clicked back in my head. And
That's
I kind of want to go back and watch the Bronx Tale, but I'm worried that I'll be like halfway through the movie. I'll just watch the one man show.
that's amazing. I've only seen it a couple of times. I love that movie so much, and I love this one man show as well. I can't wait for you to see it again.
Yeah.
To see what you think of a Bronx Tale. But anyways, all right. So a Bronx Tale one man show is currently available on demand. It's hitting select theaters and a rollout at different dates, but most of you can see it if you actually purchase it on demand. I will leave a link on our show notes where you guys can actually purchase it. And if you purchase using our Amazon links, all of us here over at CinemAddicts get a slight commission as associate members. Finally, we have a movie called Green and Gold. It's a family movie, and here's a plot summary. Quote, foreclosure looms over Wisconsin dairy farmer Buck, played by Craig T. Nelson.
And he came here to farm
Oh,
dairy. Sorry. Go on.
okay, right. With mounting, very, very good, Eric. With mounting debt and
This
the
is a family
land,
show.
his family has cultivated for 4 generations at risk. Buck refuses to give up his legacy without a fight. Buck's granddaughter, played by Madison Lawler, she works with him, but as much as she loves life on the farm and all that wide open area with the animals, she wants to pursue a career in music. Lo and behold, there is a famous country musician who has just moved into the area. He's played by Brandon Sklenar, and he might be able to help her with her own country music dreams. Catch is, Buck's farm is almost pretty much under foreclosure because he can't pay the bills, and he ultimately places a big Super Bowl bet with the guy who's going to repossess his land, saying if the Green Bay Packers win the Super Bowl of that year, well, Buck will get to keep the land if the Green Bay Packers lose that year, then he'll lose the land to that person who is
Well,
threatening to take it over. Yes.
not exactly. If they lose, then they have to pay it off right then or lose. So
Okay.
like if
Right.
they had the money, if they somehow had the
Yeah.
money to buy it, they could have. Spoiler alert, that thing I just added doesn't come into play at all.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But it's functionally the same thing
Right.
that you
Right.
just mentioned.
And really, this movie is a Green Bay Packers tone film because there's a lot of Green Bay Packers stuff but ultimately it's a family movie, green and gold family movie, which has its share of, would you consider it faith-based? Not really. It's just a family drama. Eric Holmes, Green and Gold. Green and
I
Gold, of
don't
course, is
know
always
if the
Green Bay.
movie's faith-based, but the characters certainly are.
Yeah. Your thoughts on Green and Gold, Eric?
So after I watched Bronx Tale one man show, I was in a mood, but then I saw Drain, so I put in Drain, and I'm like, not can't do this. I
Oh,
need
right.
something. I need something a little more like I need some melodrama in my life. And Green and Gold felt like it would scratch that itch, kind of keep the vibes from Bronx Tale going, and it was exactly the movie I thought it was going to be, and that's a good thing because that's exactly what I wanted. I ordered I ordered the fat-free, low-fat cheeseburger, and that's exactly what they gave me. This has a lot of kind of similar feel to Dream in the Wild. I don't think this is as good as Dream in the Wild, but it had that same kind of, what would you call it? Like definitely melodramatic, but kind of you get to
That's
watch
the
it.
same kind. Yeah.
You get to watch the families work together. You know, you can tell that, although in this one, Buck, he's kind of a curmudgeon.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, we got to save the farm, but like everything he does is like, well, that's not the way you do it. We'll go this way. I'm like, dude, that's why you're losing your farm to begin with. You need to change things up a bit.
Yep.
Uh,
But it's Craig T. Nelson. We all love Craig T. Nelson. It's good to watch him again in a movie. And Madison Lawler as the granddaughter Jenny, she is the heart and soul of the film. She does a good job
yeah.
in her performance. She's good. She's believable. Also have to
So
mention,
so real quick, so this is like the Green Bay's season. I'm
Mhm.
not a big football guy, but I think
I'm
Green
a big
Bay's
football guy.
season. I believe Green Bay's season is accurate. But I this can't be based on a true story because
It's
there's a
yeah,
country star that she meets, and I don't think
right.
that person exists in real life.
Well, it said at the beginning of the movie, I think you're halfway right. It's inspired by a true story. And yeah, it's inspired by a true story. So I
Okay,
think the story about betting the farm literally for the Green Bay Packers to win Super
yeah.
Bowl, I think it's possibly the premise, but maybe all the other events are different flavors to it.
I will also say I'm not really a Green Bay fan, but I don't think that
Matters.
helped or
Yeah.
hurt. Like if you like hate, hate, you know, the Green Bay Packers, which I don't. I just don't like, you know, I don't follow them, so I don't care one way or another. Maybe if you absolutely hate the Green Bay Packers, you could have an issue with this. But I mean, if that's your barrier to entry, grow up.
We also have to mention it's one of the last roles of M. Emmett Walsh, a great character actor. I'm sure if you don't know the names, you've
Yes.
seen M. Emmett Walsh in so many different type of movies. I'm gonna
Okay.
mention a couple of them right now.
I'll look real quick. I think no,
Knives Out.
this is his last movie.
Okay. So he was in Knives Out. Let me look at other movies that you might remember. Knives Out. There is also he had a
Damn. Blood Simple,
right. Yes, he was in Blood Simple, The Odd Life of Timothy Green. Let me look at some more stuff.
Albino Alligator, Time to Kill,
Yeah. So
Free
he's
Willy 2, The Adventure Home.
Snow Dogs. He was in Snow Dogs. But when you mentioned M. Walsh, rest in peace, he is considered just a great character actor. So it's great to see him in this, and he has a good role in this. And he's believable. I liked watching Craig T. Nelson. The only thing I didn't really glom onto was the country music part. Look, I mean, if it's part of the true story, it's part of the true story. I liked her voice. I liked the country music in this, but that subplot was, I mean, I was more focused in on the main losing the farm
I
story,
get
but
that, but I think the whole point that's in there is
add color.
whether not just add color, but kind of show her dynamic with the farm.
Fair. That's fair.
She's at the farm because it's her grandparents. She has to be there. That's not what she wants to do with her life. And then so when she's the one trying to get things together to save the farm, and then Buck's like pushing against her. It's basically her, look, I don't want to do this. I'm doing this for you. And so if you're not going to take my help, just F off. You know, I'm going to go do this thing now, because if you're not going to help yourself, why am I even going to bother? Because the only reason I'm here, I want to do this other thing. Not only do I want to do this other thing, I have an opportunity to make that successful. But instead, I'm wasting my time with you, and you don't even want to, you don't even want to take the help when given. So it adds that bit of frustration and conflict to the family dynamic.
We also, right, I agree. We also have to mention that this is a movie that, like Eric said, it's a cheeseburger. If you're ordering a cheeseburger, you're going to get a cheeseburger. That said, the third act or the final moments in this movie, it really goes, I mean this in the best way, it goes overboard on the sentimentality and the schmaltz.
There's 0% chance that actually happened. But in the context of a movie like this, it's like,
it works.
I'm buying it. I'll buy it.
Okay,
I don't care. This is exactly what I came for.
You got to go for the ride. And if you have any inkling of loving being part of a family or what a family can do to one's soul, you're going to be locked into the final moments of this really interesting movie, Green and Gold. I had my complaints, but overall, I thought it was a very solid family drama and with a really knockout, cool ending. I'm giving it 3.5 stars, Green and Gold.
Yeah. I'll give this one 4 stars. This one's not quite, again, it's not quite as good as Dreamin' Wild. Although maybe you watch this one and Dreamin' Wild back to back. Definitely watch Bronx One Man Show and then go right into this, because it was just like the perfect segue into this. Again, I'll probably go back after your review. I'll probably go back and watch Drain. But like, I was not ready for Drain after Bronx Tale. I was absolutely ready for Green and Gold.
Well, listen to Bruce Purkey's review of Drained. It'd be interesting to see what he thinks of this movie of Drained. I don't know if he'll like Drained but I really love the characterizations, Eric, and it'll be interesting to see if you at least give credit to the way the movie was written. So, but Green and Gold, yeah, it's a movie that both of us pretty much recommend. 4 stars from Eric Holmes, 3.5 stars from me. In theaters.
You know who would like this movie?
Not Bruce.
No.
Yes. Who?
Angie Clark. Exactly. Yeah, I can see Bruce hating this, or who knows? Maybe he'll take it for what it is. Angie, you're listening. Hey, how's it going? I haven't talked to you in a while. You will love this movie. This movie's like right up your alley.
Yes. Well, tell us what you think of Green and Gold in theaters Friday, January 31st. And of course, A Bronx Tale one-man show currently on demand and in select theaters. We're done. Eric Holmes has to get to work in a little bit. We're just at Patreon and Cinematics. You want to have some final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, so I'll talk more about this next week, I believe, but I did a interview for a documentary about Jim Phillips called Art and Life, the story of Jim Phillips. Just want to bring it up because it's got like a slow release, but it's got a premiere in Denver. Hopefully I can make it, but I think I got to work that night. Well, I know I got to work that night because I work every night, but I got to work that night. I don't think I can get anyone to cover for me. Otherwise, I totally would have been up there for the premiere of that. But it premieres in Denver on January 31st, in Santa Cruz on February 6th. So, well, we'll talk more about it next week, but I wanted to bring that up now because when we talk about it next week, the premiere will be here and gone. So if you're listening to this now and you're near the Denver area, go check it out.
Okay.
I can't review it, but go check it out. You'll probably like it.
We also have to mention, Eric Holmes, did you remember what Patreon year we're covering for the month of February 2025? Do you remember?
I do not, but actually, you know what?
Yes.
I do. You know how I remember?
Because Google Docs?
Because I took some Magic Mind earlier.
You are a good pitch man.
It was Magic Mind, what was that? 1993. Yes. River Phoenix and Brandon Lee died that year.
Oh, that's sad. That's very sad. That's very sad.
There are many great movies that came out. Thank you, Magic Mind. You go sit over there now. We'll talk later. But yeah, well, we got 1993, and definitely a sad year, as Magic Mind reminded me of. But yeah, we got some bangers. What we doing now? The Patreon members will
Patreon members will get to pick one.
Go on there, put up a bunch, get some movies in right now, and then when it comes time, we'll narrow it down to 2 and see what we're gonna watch that year.
Do you really want? Yeah. Do you really work 7 days a week, Eric? It seems like you've been working 7 days or maybe six
I
days a
do
week. You really
7 days.
Oh,
Yes.
gosh. You
But
work.
I think that's going to change soon because Joe's getting someone to cover one of my nights, and that's the nights that I got to get someone to cover for me when I go work up in Victor. So
Mm,
hopefully pretty soon I'll have every other Saturday off, and then
very
I
good.
think someone's going to be covering or taking my Friday shift. So hopefully real soon I'll have every Friday and every other Saturday off, which will give me more time to continue writing the screenplay for Patera, which Volume 1 and Volume 2 online. And
Yes.
something came in the mail for me.
Oh, what is that? Oh, what is that? That is Hippo. I see Hippo.
Hippo with
Oh,
the slipcover.
with a
The
slip.
slip
Peter
cover
Beta. Peter Beta from Middle Class Film
actually
Class.
really, really nice. I was gonna make Peter Beta proud and take the slip cover and just like stomp on it, throw it in the trash. But it's a really nice slip cover, so I can't do that.
And again,
So
Hippo was your 2000 number one movie from 2024 because why, Eric Holmes?
it's insane. It's funny. It's like it's one of those kind of movies where you're watching it and you're like, I should be horrified, but I'm laughing my butt off and I can't figure out why other than I'm clearly a degenerate.
Well, that Blu-ray from Hippo Blu-rays from Vinegar Syndrome. I have not opened up the package yet. I ordered it. Eric Holmes ordered it. And when you get a chance to look at the special features, report back. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to have time to do anything, but tell us what you think of the Blu-ray once you sift through those special features from
And then
Hippo.
And then if you like, there's always Magic Mind, and they got these gummies. They got these this green apple flavor to them.
They're
They're
pretty
really
good.
good.
They're very good. They're very
Now
good.
they're not loaded down with sugar. That's not
No.
my kind of. That's not my kind of flavor anyway.
And
This
I
has
yes.
it's definitely a sweet flavor, but it's more muted, and it's kind of more my speed. I'm a Werther's original kind of guy.
Yes, I same here. I love those. The butterscotch ones, right? At Werther's. So,
But yeah, I
all
dig
right.
Magic Mind.
Very, very good.
I eat a lot of them. Helps me get through my 7 day weekday and get a little treat while doing it.
Oh,
Clear
very, very.
focus, calm mind, less stress.
Less stress.
Not no stress, but less stress.
And I will say this is a very good endorsement of Magic Mind because Eric Holmes, I remember from last 5, 6 years of doing this podcast with him and Bruce Purkey, been fun ride, but he's always told me that he's not a big fan of candy. I'm not saying gummies are candy, but he just the sweet stuff. And he always said from the jump, he's not a sugar guy. And the fact that you're actually devouring this is good. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not too much though, because I wanted it to last. Because I remember we got the shots. I'm like, I think it took them all in a day. I'm like, dude, these are good.
That's
and then
awesome.
we recorded, and you're like, so Eric, you got the shots. I'm like, we weren't supposed to do.
All right, Magic Mind. That shout out is to you guys. Keep on sending us stuff, and most importantly, listeners, give Magic Mind a shot. Tell us if it helps with your mind. If it's just tasty, tell us what you think. If you've already tried it, hit us up over on CinemAddicts. Tell us what you think. We are done for this week. Eric Holmes has to go very quickly for next week. For episode 280, the movies we're covering are number one, Renner. It's from a movie called Renner. I forgot the Frankie Muniz from Malcolm in the Middle.
Jeremy Renner when he got ran over.
No. Oh, that would have been an interesting documentary on
Apparently, he's writing a book about that. So
Oh,
I figure it was
interesting.
like, I mean, he's an actor. Might as well make a movie about it. But
Yeah, there's a movie called Renner.
who would play him? Probably
Interesting.
him.
Probably him. So there's Renner, there's Jazz, a movie called Jazzy. A Woman is a Woman. That's a Jean-Luc Godard film. Like a special 1 week engagement. I might see that one. It's a movie called Are You There? Armand, and a documentary called No Other Land, which Bruce Purkey has an early jump on. And supposedly, he's saying to us right now, it's a very good, interesting documentary. So 6 movies for next week. Eric Holmes, I'm out of here. You're out of here. You want to say something to our Cinemax people before we go? Quickly?
Yeah, if you're in the area, check out that Art of Life. And beyond the stuff that we talked about, also have Art of Life and First Word on Horror. It's a series. I'll talk a little bit about that next week as well. And there'll be interviews for both of them.
And make sure if you ever get on a Zoom call with Eric Holmes, make sure you have a gimbal camera so you can make his eyes go buggy with the whoa. You guys, this was so much.
You say in the middle, I move around.
Yeah.
I'm trying to match where your head is.
There you
but
go.
all I have to do is stay there because it doesn't move.
Well, yeah, check out. Go get yourself a gimbal camera. Tell us what you think of that as well. But most importantly, here's Bruce Purkey. And before we get to Bruce, Here's Claire.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining Cinematics.
Welcome to the CinemAddicts, the attic of cinema, the attic where I sit and I watch movies, some weeks a lot, some weeks not so much. In fact, this week I only have 2 movies for this show, not streamers, there were 2 screeners, and then I'm a little low on movies to bring you because this week is our week that we do our Patreon episode for the month. So 2 of the movies I watched are going to be on the Patreon episode. If you don't have our Patreon, it is a $5 catch-all. Every month we pick a year, and then our Patreon members choose 2 movies from that year for us to watch. We check them out, we review them, we give you some spoilers, maybe some trivia about the movies, and we also give you a little bit of trivia about that movie year. So if that interests you, if you want to hear specific movies reviewed and you want to have a control over which ones we review from the past for a particular year, maybe you should check out our Patreon. As well, on the Patreon, you get early access to the regular episode and interviews and spoilers and all kinds of stuff that Greg will throw on there. But if not, we still love to have you come and listen to the regular show as well. So we are currently in the last week of January, so you know what that means. It is still considered one of the big doldrums of movies. So we'll see. Are the screeners this week part of that doldrum? I think that they might have 3 or 4 movies. I only have 2, as I said. Also, I've been continuing to watch Twin Peaks: The Return. I'm not going to really review that until I get to the end of it, which will probably be several weeks from now. I had watched that partially back when it first launched. Maybe I'd made it like 3 or 4 episodes in, and I thought, I just can't do this. This is 18 episodes. I don't have the commitment for it. But now with the death of David Lynch, I'm going back and revisiting it and enjoying it quite a bit. But that is not a full review. You'll get one eventually for that. So what do we have today? The actual movies we're discussing are, excuse the wrinkling of my papers here, a movie called Drained and a movie called Like Father, Like Son. All right, let's get into them. Also this week, just before I go into that, my son and I might go see in the theater Companion, because I have a feeling that might be, even if it's a bad movie, I have a feeling it might be a entertaining movie to review and to see, but we'll see. All right, we're going to start with Drained. Drained is directed by Peter. Oh boy, if I can read my own writing here, it'd be great. Oh boy, Styliano and Sam Cronin. All right, I am sorry about the names. I am terrible sometimes about my own handwriting. I can't read it, and I don't go back and look at IMDb. Anyway, Drained is from this year, and it stars Thomas, played by Rorid Aldington, and then Rhea, played by Madalena Bellariu. Boy, I'm terrible with names. And this is kind of it's not a 2-person movie, but they are the 2 main characters. It starts out with our main character, Thomas, and he is kind of your classic failure to launch dude. I don't know if they said what his age was, but he looks to be like mid-20s, maybe even late 20s, old enough that he's going to probably be, most of the people that age are going to probably have gotten out of the house. But he's still living with his mom. She's a single mom. He is sitting up in his, attic room, drawing fantasy illustrations of, hot, fantasy women and vampire women and sword and sorcery women, that kind of. He's not an incel per se, but he definitely doesn't have a lot of game, and he definitely doesn't have a lot of ambition, and I think he has dreams of becoming an illustrator or maybe a comic book artist, and he's just sitting there in the attic room doing his thing. Very quickly in the movie, mom brings home a dude. She very quickly becomes serious about this guy, and this guy has no patience for Thomas still living at home with mom, especially when he decides he's going to move in and become the man of the house. He's got his woman, which is Thomas's mom, and it's time for Thomas to go out and live on his own. So how it works is, this guy who moves in, he basically says, Thomas, I've got my old apartment. I'm moving in. You're going to go live in my old apartment and try to get yourself on your feet. You need to get a job. You need to get yourself going. And that begins Thomas's, I guess, path into independence. Although what he really ends up doing, instead of becoming very independent and kind of going on and making his life more of a individual life, you don't see him doing much. He pretty much just seems to eat, drink, not do a lot. In fact, there's a lot of scenes of him in this movie, and it kind of bothered me. And it wasn't made to be a disturbing movie, really, per se, but lots of movies of him, scenes of him peeing or, now you don't see it, but peeing or eating like spaghetti grossly, or just, I don't know. It just seemed kind of fixated on that stuff in a way that I wasn't really enjoying. Anyway, you follow him and he goes to the local watering hole, the local bar. He seems to kind of know the bartender there. They're kind of chatting and he's trying to he's being encouraged by the guy. You just got to go talk to women. It's no big deal. And the thing, Thomas isn't like he isn't played off as a total nerd. I mean, he looks like he'd be a fairly athletic dude. He's in good shape. He's not stereotypically what you think of it as a nerd, but obviously he doesn't seem to have a lot of confidence talking to women. He's standing there at the bar and watching the women dance. It's a small bar, and he sees a woman that comes in, and she just enthralls him. You know, long dark hair. She's kind of in flowy sort of a lacy dress, and she is just kind of a vision to him, and immediately is attracted to her, and she immediately seems interested in him in a way that's unusual, like almost obsessed with him, where you wouldn't be necessarily with someone you just saw across the room. He doesn't seem very interesting. Like he's just a dude, nothing special. But she immediately says, what does she say? Something like, "You look beautiful," or something a little odd. Well, long story short, you get the idea of this pretty quickly. It's not like it's a secret. She is a vampire, and he and she have a obsessive, unhealthy relationship, as you might guess. And he knows she's a vampire, so it isn't like a secret. Very quickly you see, and she'll eat off his arm, and that's kind of their version of sex, I guess you'd say. You don't ever see them doing that. You just see him like with his arm out, getting fed on. So that's kind of the basic situation in this movie. And really quickly you get the idea like, oh, this is going to be kind of a metaphor for addiction. I mean, obviously he has bites on his arm. He's obsessed with it. It's causing his life to kind of fall apart. He's getting unhealthy. People are worried about him. It's a very, very, very obvious metaphor for addiction, which has been done many times, I think, with vampirism, especially. And so it kind of, the question for me asked, what am I supposed to get special from this movie? It isn't especially visually interesting, and it doesn't say a whole lot about addiction per se. I mean, very basic things that you would get from addiction, right? Like I said, his health wanes, his relationship with his family and his other people he knows wanes because he kind of basically is giving up everything for this addiction. And of course, she even tells him when she meets him, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because it isn't like you think it's see in the movies, but if you do this, it's going to be a commitment, and it's going to really be everything in your life if you do this, because I need you to be that for me." And there's this whole thing about how she says that only certain people taste really good, and he's one of them. So that's why she's kind of more fixated to him than like any other dude that she might walk across and meet on the street. Even though she'll get blood from anybody if she needs it, but if there's somebody who really tastes good, she wants to stick with them. So there's kind of a level of, I guess you'd say, attraction or commitment there. Anyway, this is a very minor movie for me. It didn't really move the needle much. I don't think it works great as an obsessive love story in the way that, you'd get like I don't know, what's another version of a really obsessive love stories? 9.5 Weeks or something, destructive love stories that are just obsessive, like passionate affair or whatever. This is trying to kind of be that. Doesn't really work. There's a thing about how she became a vampire, and it's different than it is in other vampire lore, and that plays into the ending of this movie somewhat, which makes it's kind of really predictable if you're watching the movie. I don't want to say what it is, so if you do want to watch it, you won't get spoiled. But when she talks about how you get turned into a vampire, I was like, well, okay, obviously that's going to happen at some point in this movie somehow, and it does. Just in the same way, it's like they were standing around looking at a gun together, like, look at this gun. This is how it works. Okay, well, that character is going to definitely use that gun later on, that Chekhov's gun thing. Yeah, and there's some scenes that are supposed to be, I think, either kind of blow you away or really striking, and they kind of came across a little silly to me. Specifically, there's a couple scenes where they're flying, and that really, really didn't work for me at all in this movie. Some people it might work, but it didn't. Oh, I know the movie I would say. Thirst. Thirst would be a great movie from Korea. Same director that did Old Boy, if I remember correctly, did Thirst. Park Chan-wook, I do believe, if I remember correctly. Now that's a movie that goes along interesting, similar territories, but in really unexpected and unusual ways, and really plays with the genre, the subgenre, and it really has all kinds of different tones and just as surprising throughout. Whereas this movie is kind of unsurprising throughout. And last but not least, the hardest thing about this is for her, I can definitely see how you could see her and she works as a character as a, beautiful, young, dark-haired, mysterious woman, kind of the very obvious version of this kind of vampire woman. So she works as far as an appealing character. He is not, and I'm sorry to say, but he's not an interesting character. He's not an interesting person. So I guess I didn't feel attached to his story or his plight. I wasn't rooting for him or against him. He was such a normal, such a non-story kind of person that I was like, I guess she might just kill him, or maybe she won't. I don't really care. Was she gonna go home? Don't really care. So, yeah, for me, this is a 2-star. I give it 2 stars because there's definitely some decent production. There's some decent acting. And it works overall as a story. It's not like just a disaster, but it wasn't for me. And I don't think it's going to work for most horror fans. I don't think this is going to be a winner for most people. 2 stars for Drained. And then the second movie we've got this week is Like Father, Like Son, directed by Barry J. Now, the stars of this movie, and as we get this, there's a few people here you know. Most famous, you got Dermot Mulroney as Gabe, who is the main character's father. And then you have Eli McKinnon, who is played by Dylan Flashner. Now, he's the main character, Eli. You also have Vivica A. Fox is a really small role as kind of this employer. And then you have Mayim Bialik as a really small role as I think a counselor. I don't even remember what she was doing in this movie. So this is one of those movies that has a bunch of characters who were major characters or major actors, but now are in a lot of these kind of B movies, especially Mulrooney. Dermot has been in lots of things lately, and he does a pretty decent job, usually whatever he's in. But usually it's a sign of one of these kind of B movies. Now, this movie's also on our screener. It was called AKA The Grindstone. So I have a feeling The Grindstone or Grindstone was the original title of this movie. But Like Father, Like Son is such a generic title. I kind of wish they would have stayed with Grindstone. At least that's a little bit more unique or a little more memorable, I suppose. Anyway, boy, oh boy, this movie. So it starts out in 1990. It starts out and you see Mulrooney and his teenage son are out working, I forget what they're doing, gardening or construction or something. We're working outside, right? And nearby, a little kid is being bullied by a bigger kid, like a teenage kid is being bullying like this like nerdier little kid, to the point that he's like punching him and threatening him, and he's got the kid on the ground. And you see Mulrooney. I'm gonna put Gabe. Let's just say Gabe and Eli. Eli's the teenage kid of the two construction people, right? And Gabe sees this and he can tell he's just getting more and more angry, and he's finally like he can't handle watching this bully anymore. So he runs over there with his hammer, if I remember correctly. He had a hammer because they were working on stuff. He runs over there and he hits the teenage bully to knock him off the little kid. But then he keeps hitting him and keeps hitting him and keeps hitting him. And it's like, obviously he's going to kill this kid. He's gone into a rage. He just can't control his anger. And, smash cut to, what is it? I don't know. 10 years later, and Eli is now a grown-up young man in his 20s, and his dad, Gabe, is in death row for first-degree murder, for killing this kid, for going in a rage and killing this kid. And first of all, right out of the gate, I was like, that's not first-degree murder, is it? Like, I'm not a legal expert, but isn't first-degree murder premeditated murder? And we literally watched the situation where it was like, not only was it not premeditated, like, he did it in a fit of rage. He saw something happening, and he couldn't control himself. Not that this is an excuse, but it's not first degree. He didn't have a weapon like ready to go. He just had a hammer, which was what he was using for his work. So if anything, it was kind of the textbook, second degree murder or maybe even manslaughter, but probably second degree murder because obviously he went over to hit the guy. But it seemed really weird to me that it was first degree murder and he was on death row. But whatever, that's the story, right? And he's in first degree, he's on death row, first degree murder, and you're just watching the kid, Eli, just trying to keep his life on track. And he has terrible jobs. He's just living nights like doing what is he doing? I almost forget what he does for a living. I think does he do deliveries or something? Whatever he does, he works like a really like terrible job. He lives in an apartment. He doesn't have much of a life. And then very quickly you discover like, uh-oh, like father, like son, he has bad anger issues. He meets a woman and he immediately is like likes her, but then easily gets angered and starts choking her and pushing her up against a wall. And he's like, oh my gosh, what have I become? But then he still ends up eventually taking her home, and they have this night together. But then he thinks she might be a prostitute, but she's not. Or she is she, and she has a heart of gold. Hard to say. And then later he sees her with another guy, and then he flips out and kills that guy in a fit of rage. I'm almost forgetting this movie. It's so terrible. Okay, you get the clue. This is terrible. The basic plot of this movie is it's almost played like Batman to a degree because everyone he kills is bad, but he can't control his rage because it's something that's been passed down hereditarily from his father, and he will keep getting angry like the Hulk almost. And if he gets angry, you're not going to like him. And he'll beat you to death with his fists or a hammer or whatever. It is about as dumb as it sounds. This movie, sorry, I'm kind of tongue-tied on why this movie is so bad. Greg told me a thing about the director of this movie, and I don't know much about it. So I'm going to let him talk about it when he talks about this movie. I'm just going to say, when I was watching this movie, it had a feel to me. It had a feel to me of almost like The Room, like a very sincere movie that's supposed to be giving you the dangers of succumbing to your like hereditary nature. Like you've been cursed by this, thing that like this anger from your father. And if you can't control it, you're going to become a monster, and it's hidden inside there. And if you don't control it, it's going to come out. And it's just done in a really, really kind of, I want to say, silly way. And then the characters he interacts with are terrible. The way it's filmed is really, really not very effective. And there's kind of some strange digital slow-mo, like not real slow-mo, but digitalized slow-mo, which seems really cheap to my eye. The chemistry with him and the main woman is terrible. She's supposed to play kind of the streetwise woman who's like on the edge of like prostitution, really. And they're kind of supposed to get almost this Bonnie and Clyde kind of camaraderie between them. And it's just, I don't buy it, mostly because neither of them seem like real tough people. Like he seems like, I know last week I was talking about Brave the Dark and how the guy that was supposed to be the bad guy, the troubled kid, seemed like a youth pastor that they just cast for the role, but he was pretty okay in the role. Similarly, the guy they have is the main dude in here, Eli, played by Dylan Flashner. He, I think, is supposed to be a tough, street smart, troubled kid, and boy, oh boy, is he a blank slate. I don't like to be mean to actors, but he has negative charisma as far as I'm concerned. And it's really sad. It just doesn't work. It's not quite great enough to be funny, but it almost is, because there's some stuff is so silly that it is kind of funny, and I wasn't really bored throughout by it. In fact, weird things just were baffling. Like there's several scenes where he goes and visits his dad in the the prison, and there's some really funny stuff with his dad in the prison too. It's not supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be grim, like how his dad still can't control his anger in prison either. But there's a there's a scene where visits his dad. You know how the thing where they have the glass and the two phones and they're talking to each other. And his dad is literally confessing other murders he did in his past, to trying to warn his kid that, I've done this before and you got to watch out or you're going to become like me. And I'm thinking to myself, isn't there always, I haven't been to one of these, I've always seen them in movies, isn't there always like a big sign on the wall in those places saying like, all all conversations will be recorded. I know phone calls from prisons are that way. All conversations will be recorded and can be used against you, and blah blah blah. So obviously you're not supposed to confess an unknown murder on one of those phones to the person you're talking to, but he does it. Anyway, I thought that was kind of crazy. This movie throughout is just, it gets sillier and sillier, and it doesn't work to me as a cautionary, gritty tale as much as a unintentionally funny crime drama. I almost wondered if this was a faith-based movie at sometimes too, except it was just too gritty, too gross, like too overtly gross to be probably a faith-based movie, but it felt almost like one. This felt like somebody where, boy, I'm going on too long on this. This felt like a movie where the director, I would have believed the actor kid that had no charisma was actually the director, and this was like a vanity project. But then I started wondering if maybe the director, this kid is like his nephew or something, and he's just going to give him a movie. Because something about this felt like a vanity project by somebody who had all the control and just didn't have any idea of how to do these things. 1-star banger is what I'd give this. 1-star banger, meaning it's so bad that there is a level of entertainment here. I wouldn't say spend money to go watch it, but if it was on a streamer or something, or you had access to this, you might dip into it just to see the weirdness of it. I don't know if it's good enough to be a room status, but I think there's some people who will find some enjoyment out of the ridiculousness of this movie. 1-star banger. And that's it. That's all I've got this week. I know it's short, but hope you enjoyed it. At least it gives you something to talk about or think about. I wish I could bring you a better movie this week. I know we have a bunch of screeners on deck for next week, so I have a feeling next week is going to bear some really great fruits as far as some weird underground movies that you may not have heard of anywhere else. Hopefully that's the case. But that being said, maybe Eric and Greg loved movies this week that I didn't love. So, maybe listen to them and just, I'm a loss this week. Whatever. Enjoy.